Let's go down to Scottsdale right now and bring in the guy who covers the Rockies for the Denver Post, beat writer Patrick Saunders. Patrick, being brought to you by Papa John's. Go to papajohns.com, order some pizza right now. Patrick, back in Scottsdale, I know, tough duty, and thrown right into it because yesterday the Rockies announced they have cut the guy who was supposed to be the number 2 pitcher in their starting rotation, Jhoulys Chacin. Should we be surprised by this at all, Patrick?
Well, I guess I could ask you guys the same thing. Are you surprised by it yourselves? Because we talked about it last week, Les.
Yeah.
That was the whole point I was going to bring up, Patrick. When you were here, you were telling us about his miles per hour being down in the 80s, and I asked you the question then, well, is he just preparing for the season or is he really struggling? I would guess that the latter would be true, that he really just had not regained his form.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, Patrick. I mean, unless there was a major uptick in his velocity back to where he's used to throwing at 91, 92, 93. I'm not surprised by this at all. I'm surprised that they did it so quickly because the previous regime, Patrick, might have let him stick around a little bit longer and failed more before they moved on him, because you know how Dan O'Dowd and those guys dealt with it. They stuck with their guys come hell or high water because it was their guys, and eventually they were going to be right about their guys, right?
I think that's true. And guys, the other point is, well, there's two things at work here, guys. One is exactly what you just said. I think it does indicate a little bit of a different direction, which I think is a good thing. But let's not forget the money, too. Yeah. And I don't have the exact date, but I think it would have been the 26th of March or something. They would have been in deep for almost his whole contract. So there was a monetary reason for doing it now as well. But I think it signals, and I talked to a bunch of players today about this, I think it signals that maybe this time around they're not going to wait around for a veteran, whoever else. They're going to try to move forward. So there's a bad side to this because it shows the weakness of the rotation. But the good side of this is that it shows at least they're not sitting around doing nothing.
Well, and I said, I don't know whether you heard us, I said this is the biggest story at camp because it's been, this may seem unfair, very boring camp, which means that's actually pretty good news.
Yeah, 5 weeks. There's hardly been any news coming out
of there. So look at the rotation. Let's move ahead. Look at the rotation and who moves up, who moves down, who's in the rotation.
Well, I think they've got a number of candidates. You know, it's interesting. We talked to Walt Weiss at length about this today, guys, and I thought it was interesting. Walt said, you know what? This move represents risk, which I think he's willing to take on. But to answer your question, I think certainly Eddie Butler's in the mix, John Gray's in the mix, Christian Bergman's in the mix. Dale from the guy they picked up from Atlanta. Now, if I had my druthers, I think they should go spend a little extra money. I think they should go with John Gray right now if they're really serious about trying to win with Tulo and Cargo before the window closes. That would be my pick. I would go with John Gray.
Yeah, I'm with you, Patrick. I mean, he's thrown very well in camp. Obviously he hasn't played a full major league season, so we don't know how well he'll make it, how he'll endure. But, I mean, look, the guy's 23 years old. He was a number 1 pick, 3 years ago? And It's time to see what he can do. And he is throwing well. And if it doesn't work, then send him back down for a little more seasoning. But the other 3 guys, they don't turn me on at all, Woody. How about you?
Well, I want to bring this up, Patrick. I think I'm basically tired. We went through that generation. You were covering the team then, I think. The Generation R, remember that deal that came around? Realistically, and you said it, you're optimistic and realistic, and you said 75 victories, and I had some fun with it on Sunday. But yeah, well, I mean, if everything went well, they could win 90 victories this year. Everything would have to go perfect, but I could run a 4-minute mile too if everything went perfect in my life. No, I couldn't do that.
No, I'm betting against that one.
But why not? Why isn't it possible that they would go with Matzik, Eddie Butler, Jonathan Gray, and then a couple of the veterans, I mean,
Kendrick De La Rosa.
Yeah. I mean, and come out and say, we have been waiting for Butler and Gray. Matzik came around last year. We'd have a couple of veterans that we really want to see the young people. And if it doesn't go well, then you trade Tulo or Cargo at the All-Star deadline.
Well, I agree with that philosophy, guys. I think that, if they really believe they can win, they're not going to put both Butler and Gray in because they're going to think it's too risky. But I agree with what you guys are saying. Eventually, if they don't win this year, we know that things are going to get blown up. So why not try some different things now? The way Walt was talking today, I think they could go any number of directions, and Walt was not letting on what they're going to do. The one guy you guys did leave out, and he was actually having a pretty good spring, and he's a young guy too, is Jordan Lyles, and he's not going to blow your socks off certainly not the way John Gray is, but he's not a bad guy to have in your rotation. I actually prefer him over Kendrick, but this signals a big change for this organization. I don't think there's any doubt about that.